Hello, my name is Dr. David Morris with Magnolia Medical Center. I'm glad you're taking time to watch this video. I know it will answer a lot of questions for anyone who suffers from autoimmune disorders and metabolic issues. I want you to know that I created this video some time ago, and like this short intro here, there are some other edits at the end of the video that are very important. I've changed. I look a little bit younger in the main body of this presentation than I do in this intro. But the science and our approach to treating autoimmune disorders has not changed. Something that we're very proud of is that our approach to handling complex metabolic issues like autoimmune disorders has been so successful that we had to expand our facilities and our team in order to help more patients. So while it is me doing this presentation, our team and our team approach is the reason for our success in helping people get their lives back. As I mentioned again in the video shortly, please watch this all the way to the end. I know it's a little long, but all of the information is important to you solving these issues.
I'm Dr. David Morris, and I want to welcome you to my workshop on autoimmune conditions. If you're watching this, either yourself or someone you love has been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, or maybe you suspect you have an autoimmune condition. The autoimmune conditions we're going to talk about on this video are rampant in society today, especially in the United States, and we're going to get into why that is. But if you are suffering from an autoimmune issue, then I really recommend you watch this entire video. And at the very end, I'm going to tell you what the first step is that you've got to do in order to get your life back from an autoimmune condition. In my office, my providers practice functional medicine and functional neurology for the management and support of chronic conditions, of which autoimmune disease is one of the most common that we see in our clinic. The way that traditional medicine treats autoimmune disease and the way an office like ours treats autoimmune disease that practices functional medicine are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So there's definitely a lot to it, and if you watch this video in its entirety, you're going to find out that you can get your life back from these types of conditions. Now, I've been practicing for 20 years, and as I said, my practice specializes in the management and support of chronic illnesses, as I've already mentioned. Now, you may already know that there can be many symptoms of autoimmune disease. Your immune system, as you're going to learn in this video, talks to all other systems in your body. So the symptoms that you can have can really range far and wide. There's fatigue, weakness, there's chronic joint pain. Okay, we see the one common thread in all chronic illness is inflammation. There's unexplained weight gain or weight loss, or bloating because 80% of your immune system resides in your gut. Inflammation in your gut can spread to the body and also to your brain. So brain fog, depression, low libido, mood swings, anxiety, memory loss, inability to focus, digestive problems, skin and nail problems, visual disturbances. Look, folks, this is not how to live life. We get passionate about what we do because there's so much more that you can do that you're probably not doing. I'm going to try to share the main points with you on this video. So let's talk about the immune system. What is the immune system? It's mainly, what we think of it is our white blood cells, those cells in our body that go out and kill things that should belong. But we have different types of white blood cells that do different jobs. But the big picture is that our immune system protects us against what does not belong in our body. Now, we think right away, well, what doesn't belong in our body? Well, germs, pathogens, antigens, which is another name for a germ, parasites. So obviously, we all know about that. We've heard about that before, but we don't realize is that every day we have 50 to 70 billion cells that die in our body. We have 10 trillion cells, so we can afford to lose 50 to 70 billion as long as they're being replaced. Your immune system orchestrates the removal of those dead and dying cells and your thyroid and other growth hormones and things orchestrate the renewal of those 50 to 70 billion cells. That's another subject. So what we see, if the immune system, if it's not functioning properly, these 50 to 70 billion cells will not be removed properly or disposed of, and they can linger around and replicate, and their DNA can be defective, and this is one of the causes of cancer. Cell death, we all know that if I hit my arm with a hammer, I would have an inflammatory reaction on my arm there would be an immune response because I just killed some tissue with the hammer. And now, those defective cells, the immune system is going to rush to that area and try to eliminate them. So any kind of inflammation anywhere, there's going to be an immune reaction, just like in trauma, like I mentioned before. Now, before things can actually get into our immune system, they have to pass through barriers. They have to cross barriers. For example, our skin is a barrier. If I cut my skin, would that increase or decrease my chance for infection? Well, it would increase it. And we all know that because I have a hole in my barrier. We have barrier systems elsewhere in the body, like in our gut. In our small intestines, we have a one-cell thick, very important barrier system, a one-cell layering that protects us between what we do want to get into our body and something we may have put in our mouth that doesn't belong in the body. So that's our gut barrier. We have our skin. Okay, our skin's a barrier, and our mucous membranes, and a very important blood-brain barrier because the brain is really, really picky about what belongs in the brain. So before anything can get to your white blood cells, we have these barrier systems. And those are very important when we talk about things like leaky gut or impairment of the blood-brain barrier. Now, where is our immune system located? So let's make some sense of this, okay? Our immune system protects us against what doesn't belong in our body. Well, how do things get into our body? 80% of the way things get into our body is through what we eat and what we take in through our mouths. So therefore, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. That is where it all starts. The other 20%, not including your white blood cells, how else do things get in? We breathe them in, or they come in through our skin. So the other 20% of our immune system is in the mucous membranes lining our lungs, and in our bronchus and even our skin. So then we have an entirely separate immune system in our brain. As a matter of fact, for every nerve cell, every neuron that you have in your brain, and you have billions of them, they're protected by 9 to 10 immune cells, which are called microglial cells. So the brain has its own very sophisticated, complicated immune system, and it is important that you understand that. The thing that I want you to remember is when you get activation of one part of your immune system, for example, in your gut, that can activate other areas of the immune system. I can't tell you how many patients we've had come to our office with skin problems, eczema, psoriasis, or chronic sinusitis, or brain fog, and it's because they have their immune system in their gut is being activated because they have an infection in their gut or something, or they have a food sensitivity, and keep eating the food that is causing their gut immune system to be in a hyperactive state. It activates the rest of their immune system in their skin or in their brain or their sinuses. So the immune system is a very elaborate system and has ways of talking between the different parts of it, one part of the immune system to the other. This is very important, all right? Now, I want to ask you right now, do you think there are more things in the environment today that don't belong in your body than there were 30 years ago? Obviously. Unless you've been living under a rock, we know that the answer is a resounding yes. Now, I'm not opposed to all vaccines as an example here, okay? Or the decision of a parent to vaccinate their kids. But in the United States, there's 36 vaccines for children under the age of 5. That's double the rest of the Western world countries, which is at about 18. We all know there's genetically modified foods, another example here, or genetically modified organisms. Our food's been modified genetically. Most of our grains and our seeds and fruits and vegetables have been modified genetically, and when we take these things in, for example, wheat, we've all heard about gluten sensitivity, which is very common. The wheat that we eat, the protein, gluten or gliadin, is not the same as it was 20 to 30 years ago. The DNA structures have been changed, and for a lot of us, now when we eat these GMOs, our immune system, 80% in our gut, looks at that food and says, whoa, 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 that's foreign, and it starts to react. So here's something I want you to learn about the immune system. When it is too busy fighting things that it shouldn't have to fight, like foods, it starts to make mistakes. And that is what autoimmune disease is. And that is why autoimmune diseases are rampant, especially in women. Women tend to have immune systems that are a little bit more complex or a little bit more sensitive, probably a little bit better word. Pesticides, chemicals, plastics, hormones, all these chemicals that were not in our environment 20 to 30, 40 years ago, and they're now in our environment, and our immune systems today have to work much, much harder. And that's a very important concept. So here's a take-home message, okay? This is, I want you to learn this. Our immune systems have to work harder than ever in the history of humankind. Now, the mistakes the immune system will make, I want you to notice that there are mistakes of omission, where some things are not done, like not being able to get rid of an infection or fight something off. So we have these chronic viruses, things like Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr virus, which like 95% of people are exposed to, or hep virus or herpes or cytomegalovirus, that one's rare. We constantly get colds and flus because our immune system is weak and are too busy fighting off foods or other things, toxins that are in our environment. Cancer, we already mentioned that. Now, every day we have these cells, billions of cells that die, and if they're not got rid of through a process called apoptosis, if we don't get rid of those dead and dying cells, they linger around. Is cancer on the rise today? Absolutely. Despite all the research and everything that is being done, cancer is on the rise for this reason. And then there are areas of commission, where the immune system is actively making a mistake, and this is what we're talking about today. An autoimmune disease is when your immune system is mistakenly attacking your own tissue. It should not be doing that. And then food sensitivities, where the immune system is attacking foods. That's an error of commission that the immune system is making. All right. So the most common autoimmune diseases in this country today, Hashimoto's, #1 by far. Another one is Graves' disease. We see a lot of rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis patients in our clinic. A lot of patients come into the clinic not even knowing that they had an autoimmune condition. And that's one of the things I want to make clear. A lot of you who are suffering from chronic illness may have an autoimmune condition and you don't even know it. Okay? Sjogren's disease, lupus, Chrohn's, ulcerative colitis, type 1 or type 1.5 diabetes, not type 2, myasthenia gravis, psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, and there are many others. Whatever tissue is being attacked, there's a name for it, but the process is always the same. Your immune system is making a mistake. Autoimmune disease in the United States is increasing every year for the reasons I've already mentioned. Most cases are not diagnosed, and in most cases, they will progress, they will get worse with time. Conventional healthcare has very little to offer besides immunosuppressive drugs. The only thing medicine does with autoimmune disease is to squash your whole immune system. Okay? Well, let me tell you, folks, you need your immune system. So that is not always the best idea. Conventional and alternative healthcare may not fully understand autoimmunity. And you're going to understand more about autoimmunity watching this video than most doctors. And it all leads to tissue destruction. Your body is being destroyed by your own immune system. Folks, I want to share some facts with you. And I might sound like I'm being on my soapbox here a bit, but you may not be getting the right diagnosis or the right treatment, or even diagnosed or treated at all. And here's why. In 2013, the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association, AARDA, you can look them up, they completed a study. And in that study, they surveyed primary care doctors from around the country. And the results were pretty disturbing for people suffering with autoimmune issues. 64% of primary care doctors stated they were uncomfortable or stressed when diagnosing autoimmune disease. 73% don't believe they had adequate training in diagnosing and treating autoimmune disease. And lastly, and this is the most disturbing part to me, a full 57% reported having only 1 or 2 lectures on autoimmune disease in all of their medical training. Not 1 or 2 classes, but 1 or 2 lecture periods. That means 1 to 4 hours of time spent learning about these issues during their schooling. This is why the AARDA finds in their research that it currently takes visiting 5 different doctors before getting a diagnosis of autoimmune disorder. And it is currently taking a patient that is suffering a full 3 years before they get an accurate diagnosis. Now, I get hyped up about that because patients are suffering in a system that doesn't even know how to find the problem. Okay, off my soapbox. Now, these are some key points I want you to remember. There are well-known triggers to any autoimmune condition. This is well documented in the scientific literature, okay? And we're going to go over some of these today. Autoimmune reactions occur years before you developed autoimmune disease. And this is what we're trying to do with our patients. Identify if you're in an autoimmune reactive state, and maybe in 10 or 12 years from now, you're going to have MS or some other autoimmune disease. So this is something that we can measure now through labs. It's like heart disease, folks. You don't just all of a sudden have a heart attack one day. Your arteries in your heart didn't clog up all in one day. They've been doing it slowly over time. So it's very similar. This is the same principle with autoimmune disease. So the reactions can occur sometimes 10, 12, 15 years before you have enough tissue destruction to where you have symptoms of disease. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we're trying to diagnose these a lot earlier. If you are autoimmune against one body part, okay, there's a very, very good chance that you're an autoimmune against multiple other tissues. Statistically, there's a 95% chance that if you have an autoimmune condition, one autoimmune condition, you either already have or will develop another unless triggers are addressed. There's no cure for autoimmune disease. The way I like to explain this to my patients with autoimmune disease is that it is like one day someone turned the light switch on and your genes got expressed for autoimmunity. Then the light switch got broken and you can't turn it off. What you can do though, there's kind of like a dimmer switch. And if we could dim it all the way down, that is what we do with functional medicine and the protocols you're going to learn about in this video. Technically, there's no cure, as I mentioned. Traditional medicine versus functional medicine are on opposite ends of the spectrum. The approach is totally different to autoimmune disease, and we're going to go over our approach, which is a functional medicine and functional neurological approach based on lab studies. Okay? And the last thing on this slide is you will never be healthy with a poor functioning immune system, folks. If your immune system isn't healthy, you're not going to be healthy. That's just the bottom line. I think you're going to like this approach. Now, like I said, our immune system is under siege today with all the extra things that exist in our environment, okay? There's hope, all right? I want to teach you a little bit about the underlying physiology of autoimmunity. Now, I don't want to bore you with this, but you have to you got to have some basic concept of what's going on. In our immune system, you have lymphocytes, you have white blood cells. Okay, and they're like our soldiers in our immune system. They're basically 4 different classes of lymphocytes. We have Th1 and Th2. Th stands for T helper, and many of you have heard of T helper cells. And these different types of T helper cells should be talking to each other. These Th1 and Th2 cells should be able to communicate with each other and then stay balanced. Th1 are also known as our innate immune response. They're the frontline defense against any antigen. They're the assassins in your immune system. When they see something that doesn't belong in your body, it's going to go and attack it. The Th2 is also known as the humoral immune response, or the adaptive immune response. These are cells that form antibodies. Antibodies that will tag the invader. And when the immune system deems anything that the immune system deems as foreign, and it will say, hey, if this thing ever comes into our body again, we're going to use the antibody to destroy the invader in a more sophisticated, less violent way than Th1. For example, when you get vaccinated, like a polio vaccine, which is a virus, they're going to give you the polio virus. The vaccine contains what they call an attenuated version of the polio virus, which is sort of like a polio virus, but not exactly the same. It's been modified to be made weaker. So you get that injection, and there would be a little Th1 response. You're going to get maybe a little viral one, but you're going to get a little bump or a little swelling, and that would be a Th1 response. Then Th2 response would be forming antibodies to that vaccine, so that if you were ever exposed or infected with that virus, the polio virus, you already have the antibodies in your body to destroy it. So this is what happens, and this is how the immune system works, Th1 and Th2. They do different things, but they're both very important in defending our bodies against attack. Now, we have another set of cells called Th3 cells. These are regulatory T cells, and these help balance the communication between Th1 and Th2. They're like the generals in the army, not the soldier. They tell Th1 when to attack and Th2 when to make antibodies against the enemy. Then you have a fourth group, which are Th17 cells. And as I said, TH stands for T helper, and in most autoimmune patients, this TH3, the T regulatory cells, are failing. The TH1 and TH2 cells are out of balance. They're not able to communicate with each other, and eventually that out of balance between TH1 and TH2 will cause activation of TH17 and the natural killer cells, which causes tons of tissue destruction. In fact, by the time this is going on, this out of balance TH1 and TH2, when you're having an autoimmune reaction, there are probably no symptoms at all. But when these guys, the TH17 cells, get involved, that's probably when you're going to start getting your symptoms from the autoimmune condition. So we see there's two responses in your immune system, TH1 and TH2. And as I explained, when a person is autoimmune, one of these is going to be firing too much. It's going to be too heavy. It could either be TH1 or TH2, one or the other. It's very important to know which one. If you have an autoimmune condition, from a functional medicine point of view, we need to know which one is firing too high, because there are certain foods and even supplements that you would need to avoid putting in your mouth because it could aggravate things. So we need to figure this out. Then we have these things called cytokines. And these are things with big names like interleukins and TNF-alpha. And these are chemical messengers between the immune cells. They're kind of like hormones. They're messengers, but for your immune system. The more out of balance TH1 and TH2 cytokines are, the more tissue destruction there will be. This is what is going on in someone who is autoimmune. But why would this happen? Okay? So as I mentioned, from a functional medicine point of view, we want to know why. Why would your immune system do this? And if we could find out the whys and remove them, then we could get that dimmer switch way down and get your life back from this autoimmune disease. So there are two things. Dysregulation. Okay? The immune system is out of balance because of stressors to it. Chronic inflammation does that. Okay? Big cause. Chronic inflammation. Big stressor to your immune system. Things like eating too many trans fatty acids, omega-6 oils, which cause inflammation, and on top of that, too much of them, and not enough omega-3s. There are many reasons why someone might get inflamed. If your blood sugar is too high or too low, or both, that's a huge stressor to your immune system. And they cause it to start making mistakes and attacking your own tissue. Poor adrenal gland function, hormone imbalances, thyroid issues. If your thyroid is out of balance, it can affect your immune system. Ladies, if your estrogen and progesterone balance is improper, that's an issue. Men, low testosterone, that can cause your immune system to do this. Neurological imbalances, pregnancy, big one, pregnant women. Then they have so many women who came in, they were doing great before their second or third child, and then boom, they're a train wreck. And there's an abrupt shift between TH1 and TH2 that naturally occurs right after childbirth. Low vitamin D, you're going to find out that vitamin D is one of the most important vitamins and nutrients that you need to balance and support your immune system. And so is another compound that you may have never heard of, which we're going to talk about more, glutathione. Glutathione is extremely important when it comes to balancing your immune system. In healthy people, enough of it is naturally made in the body. You can have an active antigen. This is the other thing. You can have an active antigen that would trigger your immune system to be in attack mode all the time and destroy tissues in your body. I can't tell you how many patients that have come to us with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition, with MS, with Meniere's, which is another autoimmune disease, Chrohn's, ulcerative colitis, psoriatic arthritis, that we found pathogens or infections in their gut, parasites or bacterial infections or yeast overgrowths. Once we got rid of that, their immune system calmed down and their whole autoimmune cascade just really kind of quieted and they got their lives back. So chronic infections in the gut, all right. Now, patients with Lyme disease and different viral and bacterial infections that can trigger autoimmunity. Food sensitivities are huge. If you're watching this, I'm telling you right now, you have to find out what foods you are eating that your immune system is reacting to. We have seen miracles checking for and measuring food sensitivities. When you eliminate those, you take such a load or burden off your immune system, and we simmer the autoimmune process down. There are environmental toxins, heavy metal toxicity, pesticides, things like that. A lot of times, if the liver isn't working properly or the gallbladder or gut, You're not going to be able to eliminate toxins from the body, causing a constant stress to your immune system and causing it to overwork and then make mistakes. Leaky gut syndrome. How do I know if you have any of this, folks? You have to do proper testing. Proper testing is essential, okay? Now I want to talk about an important point that you might be wondering about. Does insurance cover this type of thing? The sad answer is usually it doesn't cover all of it. There's a situation you need to look at if you want to be healthier no matter where you go or how you try to achieve health. If you want quality care for a chronic condition, which is what an autoimmune disease is, you're likely going to have to pay for it out of your own pocket in today's day and age. Our health insurance industry right now, the way our health insurance is in this country, it is in line with the pharmaceutical companies. Our medical system is pharmaceutically driven. I know you know all that. Turn on TV and you're going to see all these commercials for Humira and Enbrel and all these drugs that are out there for all these different conditions, these autoimmune disorders. It is our pharmaceutical companies that drive our healthcare system in this country. So medicine, as it stands, traditional medicine, is very, very good at acute problems. For instance, if you get a heart attack, you have a stroke, you get shot or a car accident, make sure you do it in the United States. We have the best care for that possible. But where traditional medicine is very poor is in dealing with chronic conditions, but because you cannot medicate yourself out of this condition. Most of you know that. You wouldn't be watching it otherwise. It just isn't going to happen. And you cannot medicate yourself to good health. That doesn't even make sense. And I feel like I'd be misleading you if I didn't present that fact to you so you understand it. So this is what we're talking about, how to get over this naturally. The scientific literature is now saying that leaky gut syndrome is a prerequisite to autoimmune disease. Now, I was raised on the dirt roads of Louisiana, so the way I like to teach is very simple. I want you to think of a screen door in the back of your home on a hot summer day. Why is it there? To keep things out of the house that don't belong in the house, okay? Now, picture holes in that screen door, and now things are going to get in the house that don't belong in your house. That is what leaky gut syndrome is. For your gut, your intestines, and your body. When you get increased permeability of the lining that I talked about earlier in your gut, things start to make their way into your body that don't belong in your body. And larger than normal molecules or food particles or proteins. And your immune system's going to say, hey, this does not belong here. And it's going to react to it. So when we find, in all of our autoimmune patients, we want to check for this and we can repair it because there are different types of leaky gut. So it's really, really, really important. Okay? And we talked about the polarity that causes an activation and tissue destruction. But what it does is it causes a release of something called the interleukin 17 cytokine, which causes dramatic tissue destruction. This can vary on what tissue is being attacked, but that's not all of it, okay? Interleukin 17 activates what is known as the cytokine-inducible nitric oxide system, or INOS. There's so much research done on autoimmune lately, folks, and this isn't stuff that I make up. This is stuff that is in the scientific literature. By the way, the average doctor, including natural doctors, naturopaths, cardiologists, chiropractors, is 13 years behind on current literature. Don't expect your doctor to know this stuff, okay? I'm not one of those doctors. At our clinic, our providers, we're kind of like geeks. And we love studying this stuff. We love getting people that are chronically sick better. So this is important because when we see Th1 and Th2 going like this, eventually this interleukin 17 gets activated. And it's a white blood cell that's going all crazy like a terrorist, okay? And that causes activation of this bad nitric oxide system in the body. This is just kind of a review of how the whole thing gets started. We get an imbalance between Th1 and Th2, and different types of white blood cells. Either Th1 is too high or Th2. And this in and of itself is going to lead to tissue destruction. Now, if the Th3 cells are not regulated, if you don't have adequate vitamin D or glutathione or essential fatty acids, this will cause more imbalance to Th1 and Th2. So if we have more imbalance, we're going to lead to more tissue destruction. We get a negative loop here. If this remains unregulated for a period of time, 10, 12 years, then you get an activation of interleukin 17, which is like the assassin in your immune system, causing more advanced tissue destruction so that they will activate the inducible nitric oxide system, and that causes severe destruction. This is why you can see one patient, for example, that has MS, and you look at them and you hardly know it, and then we look at another patient with MS, and she's in a walker. It all depends on where they are on this downward spiral. Now, the thing I want to give you, I want to give you some hope here is each of these steps can be greatly diminished with functional medicine intervention. That is the hope, and that is the message that I want you to understand, please. Now, here's the scary part, okay? 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. Now, we already talked about that. So anything that goes into your gut and causes inflammation is going to bother your immune system and can trigger an autoimmune attack, usually from food sensitivity or infection. Honestly, I can't remember the last autoimmune patient that we've had that did not have a gut infection or with good or bad bacteria that were out of balance in the gut. And your doctor doesn't even check for these things. They're just going to put you on an immunosuppressant drug. It's very short-sighted because medicine is not good at chronic illness. They're good at acute illness. And I sincerely hope that you understand that for the sake of your health. You have to think outside of the medical model if you really want to get help with these conditions. We're going to get inflammatory cytokines. Okay, the production of inflammatory cytokines, and remember, those were the messengers in the immune cells which bother the gut. They cause the gut to break down, which causes it to get leaky. Now you have a larger than normal food molecule making its way into the blood, and it stunts your immune system and the body, and you get more food sensitivities. So we get more food sensitivities, you see this downward spiral here. Now here's something that I want you to understand. When you have inflammation in your gut, and these cytokines cause the gut to break down, they cross into your bloodstream, which can cause inflammation throughout the rest of your body because it's in your blood. And then they cross the blood-brain barrier, which reacts with those immune cells that I talked about in the brain, causing inflammation in your brain. So fire in your gut equals fire in your brain. The two are intimately connected. All right. Now, immunosuppressant drugs, which is the medical option, is there another option? Okay. Absolutely, it's what we do, and this is an important slide because people say to me, Dr. Morris, how do you manage and support autoimmune conditions? Well, this is how. We discover through lab testing and then remove autoimmune triggers. We already talked about them: inflammation, infections, leaky gut syndrome, food sensitivities, poor blood sugar regulation, all of those, hormone imbalances. We determine if you're Th1 or Th2 dominant. Through proper testing, and we adjust or include stimulants to the weak side, and we remove the stimulus from the dominant side. We support your Th3 regulatory system. This is where vitamin D and glutathione and essential fatty acids come into play. We suppress the inner IL-17 activity, and we suppress that inducible nitric oxide system. So what testing do we do? Well, we do very, very comprehensive blood work. One of the things we often check for on the blood work is what we call MTHFR gene, which is a gene that doesn't allow you to turn on your B vitamins when they're absorbed. And I see a lot of this in our clinic, so you can't methylate in the body. So we see a lot of depression, a lot of gut problems with this. We look for anemias. We look at all thyroid markers, and we check you out very thoroughly with the blood work. We also look at all the hormones. Now, we look at hormones through saliva or urine. And for women who are still on their cycle and are not on menopause, we do a 28-day hormone test to see your estrogen and progesterone fluctuations throughout your cycle. I know of no other doctor, or even endocrinologist or OBGYN, that are as thorough in checking hormones as we are, because it's an important, they have an important factor and an impact on your immune system. And we see a lot of these problems. We do food sensitivity testing and leaky gut testing. We look for intestinal dysbiosis, and as I've already mentioned. There's comprehensive stool testing, a fun test by the way, because we want to know if you have an infection in your gut. If you do, we're never going to get your immune system to be regulated. We do organic acid testing to check for mitochondrial dysfunction and any nutrient deficiencies that may be in the body. And that's a urine test, and we can check for chronic viruses also, like Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr or CMV or herpes simplex. We can look at do heavy metal testing, red blood cell mineral analysis. We check pH, the acidity and alkaline levels in the body. We're going to do tests to find out if you're Th1 or Th2 dominant. We're going to do a challenge test, which I'll explain to you if you become a patient. Now, here's the thing. A lot of you have been told that your labs are normal. First of all, how could they be normal if your doctor's not even running enough lab tests? I'm telling you right now, they're following an insurance-based model. Folks, I take insurance, but I'm telling you right now, I've been in practice for 20 years. And we can use Medicare as an example. Medicare is kind of like a prototype for all other insurances. I get less from Medicare today than I did 20 years ago when I started practicing. I get less. Your doctor that you see is no different. You better believe his or her overhead has gone up. Mine has. So what does that mean? Does that mean he or she would need to see more patients, or the same or less to make the same as 20 years ago? They're going to have to see more. And if they're following an insurance-based model. We don't. I'm very upfront, transparent. Most people are very appreciative that we're upfront about it. And I tell our patients that if you want quality care for a chronic condition, you're going to have to dip in your pockets to get it. Now, I didn't set up the system, so don't shoot the messenger. But truthfully, why wouldn't you want to pay for it yourself, okay? Health insurance doesn't make your car payment. It doesn't pay for your home. It doesn't pay for your vacations. It doesn't pay for your cell phone or your trips. It doesn't pay for your sofa. You pay for those things because you want them. And some of them you need. And you do, and you're going to have to, if the way the system is set up, have to pay for quality care. Don't chintz when it comes to your health. Our health system is good for acute and life-threatening injuries and such. Acute illnesses, not chronic illnesses. They fail at these. This is why some of you are watching this and your life is such a mess health-wise. I really hope you come see us because we can fix it. But one of the factors in your current health state could, and often is, be that you're being treated according to an insurance-based model and they don't run the proper testing. So this is why when you go to your doctor and you feel like he or she is in a rush or he or she doesn't explain things to you, we don't do that here. I had a patient tell me that they didn't want to keep seeing their regular doctor and asked why, and she said, because I'm paying a $25 copay, but I'm only getting $25 care. And I thought that was quite interesting, pretty correct look at things. Another thing when it comes to labs is not only are they not testing enough things, but they're looking at standard lab ranges. Standard lab ranges are inaccurate. I need to say that again. Standard lab ranges are inaccurate. Here's how lab determines a range. They take the average low and the average high of whomever has been in their lab for the last year. Think about that, folks. What kind of people go to the labs? Sick people or healthy people? It's definitely more skewed towards sick people. So your doctor's comparing you to the other sick Americans that went to the lab. We don't do that. We use functional ranges, okay? For example, if you're here or here, your doctor's going to say you're normal, but you're not going to be functioning normally. You're just not as sick as some average Americans are, but you're still not functioning normally. Now, here's an example of TSH. All right, TSH is a main thyroid marker. It's only one of 9 that we check for. But typically, a lab will say somewhere between 0.3 and 5.7 is normal, because that is what the average normal American going to the lab has. So if you're at 4.2, your doctor is going to say that you're normal. Now we know from a functional point of view, you're not going to be functioning right unless TSH is between 1.8 and 3.0. Well, I didn't come up with these numbers, folks. This is determined by the Endocrine Society and pathologists that have said, well, look, if we were really looking at what truly healthy people would have, these would be the numbers, this here. This is what you want to be compared to. So this answers the question, why does my doctor keep saying I'm okay when I feel so lousy? Because he or she is using this way of looking at your lab results. Now, from a functional point of view, we're going to identify and remove triggers like leaky gut. Okay, we do a cleanse called RepairVite. We're going to identify and remove infections. We're going to look at unstable blood sugar, food sensitivities, all the triggers. The only way we can do this is to test you. Does insurance cover all this? I'm afraid it won't in many cases. Should you care? The answer is no, you shouldn't care. It's your health. You should do whatever it takes to be well. What in your life is not affected by your health? Folks, I've done many of these tests on myself. I paid for them out of my own pocket. And I've paid for them for my wife also. A couple of these tests I've done for my children. My insurance didn't pay for it, and it certainly wasn't a $25 copay for me. But I found things about myself and my family that were unbelievable. And they gave me my health back. All right? So RepairVite is a cleanse that we use to calm the immune system down. If you become a patient, we'll get into that, and this is always done in the beginning of care. It is a complete program designed to break the vicious cycle of leaky gut and support intestinal health as it relates to nutritional deficiencies. Folks, good health starts in the gut. The father of medicine, Hippocrates, said all those years ago, look to the gut and there you will find the cause of all human illnesses. Now, I don't know about all, but it is certainly the place we need to start in many cases, and for sure in autoimmune cases, because 80% of your immune system exists there. All right? Now, I want you to know there are things that stimulate Th1 and Th2. Th1, like echinaceas for Th1, garlic, vitamin C. We may use these or need to eliminate these from your diet or supplement regimen, depending on what we find on your testing. And there are things that stimulate Th2, which are antibody-forming lymphocytes, such as caffeine and green tea. A lot of our patients come in and they say, I feel great when I drink coffee, or I don't drink coffee, it makes me feel lousy, or I drink green tea really helps me, or green tea makes me feel worse. Because it depends on which side of your immune system is dominant. So it's really important to figure this out, okay? From a functional point of view, we're going to be looking at supporting your regulatory Th3 cells, okay? These regulatory Th3 cells need a ton of vitamin D, folks. Your vitamin D, both forms, vitamin D2 and D3, should be in levels between 60 and 100, and you should always have these checked in your blood work, because your vitamin D, when you're autoimmune, does not work a 40-hour work week. It's working a 160-hour week. You fly through and burn through vitamin D because these Th3 cells are working extra hard trying to get those Th1 and Th2 cells to be modulated and balanced and communicating with each other. With glutathione, it is something that is normally formed in your body that helps to stimulate and get Th3 cells to work properly. So it is an immune system balancer. Fish oils can be needed, and nitric balance, which is a product that we use to get Th3 system working properly in autoimmune disease. Environmental stressors or compounds activate the immune system only after glutathione levels are depleted. When a pathologist in a lab looks at health status of a tissue, the first thing they look for is its levels of glutathione. Glutathione, which many of you may not have heard of until today, is normally produced in our body and is such an important compound in our body. The only way that these environmental stresses or compounds like heavy metals or pesticides or toxins or infections, the only way it can overwhelm our immune system is if it depletes those glutathione levels. So higher levels of glutathione are absolutely critical. It's your best friend to your autoimmune, that and vitamin D, okay? We can see right here that glutathione, when we give it to our patients, look at all the things that it does. It protects our mitochondria, okay, of the cell, which is our energy maker. So it gives us more ability to produce more energy. I know a lot of you are suffering from fatigue as a common symptom of autoimmune disease. It prevents the activation of that bad nitric oxide system. It enhances tissue and intestinal regeneration. It dampens the Th17, or the assassins in your immune system. It activates your Th3, your regulatory cells, the generals in your immune system. And it modulates Th1 and Th2 polarization. Folks, you can't get enough of this stuff. Depending on the condition of your gut, when you eat glutathione, a lot of it can be destroyed in your stomach. So oftentimes we're trying to use a sublingual or a transdermal cream to get you glutathione to be absorbed through your skin instead of through your gut. So we have to check for this. So to recap, and I'm sorry about that typo there, due to the nature of our world today, autoimmune disease is on the rise because there are so many things in our environment that weren't in our environment years ago. Our immune systems are working just overtime. Autoimmune reactions occur years before autoimmune disease shows up. Traditional medicine manages autoimmune disease by suppressing the whole immune system. That is why when you see a commercial for Enbrel or Humira, it says the side effects of some of these drugs are cancer. That's one of the side effects with certain lymphomas or tuberculosis, because you're squashing the immune system. And you need your immune system to get rid of things like cancer cells and tuberculosis. Now, we all have cancer cells in us, and we have cells that are dead and dying and defective, and our immune system is there to get rid of them. You don't want to squash and suppress your whole immune system. That's a last resort, folks. Yet we jump to these right away because we live in a pharmaceutically oriented society. Autoimmune disease is a metabolic problem, and therefore has negative impacts on all metabolic processes and, of course, the brain. Functional medicine manages autoimmune disease by identifying through testing and removing the triggers to the immune disease. Balancing the two halves, the Th1 and Th2, and managing and supporting the effects of the autoimmune disease on the other systems of the body, especially your brain.
Hi, Older Me back again. Now, what's next? Please understand this. Knowing something and not doing anything about it is just like not knowing it. You need to take action. My team cannot help you unless you call us and make an appointment, okay? So we schedule you for 2 visits, and here's what we do on your first 2 visits. When you call and schedule an appointment, tell them that you saw this video in its entirety. We will not see anybody until they've watched this video or have seen us give a class on this information, because we don't have time to explain all this in our office. We're very busy, and someone cannot just come in and say, hey, I understand your office manages these type of problems. That won't work. They got to know what we do. We don't have the time to explain all this data one-on-one. That's why I make these videos. We're going to have you bring in any recent labs, okay? Bring in any recent labs. You don't have to run all over town getting them, but if they're easily accessible, bring them in. They can be helpful. When you call the office to make an appointment, they're going to mail or email you some very important paperwork for you to fill out prior to your first appointment. Fill it out before your first appointment. And at your first visit, we want you to bring your spouse or significant other. We need them to understand what is going on. You got to understand, if you're watching this alone without your spouse or significant other, this is affecting them. And you need to realize that they need to see that there are options out there for you. So on visit number 2, so this is visit number 1, this is visit number 2, we're going to let you know if we can accept your case. Now, what do I mean by that? Some people come to us and they're like, I don't want to make any lifestyle changes. I'm not going to make any changes. Just fix me. Well, I want you to know that's okay, but don't come see us if you have that attitude, all right? You'll waste your time and your money and our time, all right? And you have to have an attitude like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want answers, and I'm not getting any answers, and what you say makes sense. So if this doesn't make sense, if what we've gone over doesn't make sense to you, that is totally fine. But respectfully, we're likely not the right place for you. Honestly, this has to make sense to you. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it. So on visit number 2, we're going to go over any and all further testing you'll need to do. So we're going to review everything that we found in visit number 1, go over into further testing that will need to be done. We talked about all the testing that someone might need. We're going to review what we think you're going to need. And we're going to overview your treatment plan. Most of our metabolic patients are managed in our office for 6 to 12 months. Usually after that time period, you don't need us anymore. We'll have it figured out and we'll teach you. This is a teaching program. When you come see us, you're going to be taught. We're going to identify the underlying causes, and we're going to teach you how to manage that for the rest of your life. There's an old saying, you can give a person a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach him how to fish and he'll feed himself for a lifetime. Nothing pleases our team more than to run into a patient we haven't seen for years out and about, and we hug and kiss and cry or whatever, we high five, and they tell us how good they're doing, how good they feel, how their life is better, or better yet, their kids tell us mommy or daddy is better. That makes everything that we do worthwhile. The stuff that we do is not easy. It's taken our team thousands of hours of postgraduate studies and hours in independent study to learn all of this. And this is the benefit you're getting when you come to see an office like ours. We're going to overview your treatment plan. All right. How often do you need to see us? It varies. If you have musculoskeletal problems, we might need to see you more frequently. But typically, for metabolic problems, a patient is going to come in to see us about twice a month. On the second visit, we're going to overview any financial obligations that you have. What is it going to cost you? And I'm going to give you a rough figure in a few minutes of that. On that visit, we want you to bring your spouse and significant other as well. Why do we want them on the second visit? Because we're going to go over what's wrong or what we found. We're going to go over what it's going to take to get you better and what it's going to cost. We like to be transparent, and you should come in already having a pretty good idea what it's going to cost, which I'll go over here shortly. So to recap, what you need for your first appointment. You need your paperwork filled out completely. Bring it in filled out. If you come in and we reserved an hour for you and you don't have the paperwork filled out, we may not have time to see you. We have a busy practice and we do everything we can to run on time, and you filling out the paperwork on our couch will eat into that time. You'll be happier if you use your couch at home to fill it out ahead of time. Again, on the first visit, we want you to bring your spouse or significant other and have them there. If your spouse is involved in any way, shape, or form in your health and your decisions, then we want him or her to be at this appointment with you. It just works that much better. All right? So here's the offer that I'm going to make to you. We only accept 10 new metabolic patients per month. That's all, 10 per month. We don't just jam up the schedule, leaving the provider team no time to see you and help you. That's no good. So we keep our patient load limited so we can give the best care possible. Right? The cost of these 2 visits that I just went over, these 2 here, the cost of those 2 visits is $550. If you make an appointment after watching this video, then that $550 is reduced to $170. And that does include the first visit's lab work, okay? So here are our rules. There's just some rules we have. We want to be very clear. You've got to be willing to make some serious life changes. Something's got to change. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over but expect different results, you're going to go insane, all right? And I know that's been happening to some of you. You just don't know what to do. That's what people hire us for. So when you do what we recommend, it'll work because it's not guesswork. It's going to be based on what we see in the lab work. So you've got to be willing to change some things in your life, folks. That's just the way it is. Please don't shoot the messenger. It's just a fact. You have to take accountability for your health. You can't blame your parents. You can't blame your spouse, your kids, the president. It's you. And once we teach you, then it is up to you. Now, we do accept insurance in our office, but please understand this. Please understand this very clearly. Insurance does not cover all of this. It actually doesn't cover much of it all, if anything. And I mentioned why earlier in this video, if you recall, so I'm going to give you a rough guideline. If it's not worth $300 to $500 per month for 18 months, we could do an 18-month payment plan. If it's not worth $300 to $500 per month for 18 months, now you're not under care for 18 months. I mentioned that. We usually see patients for 6 to 12 months, but we can stretch out the payment plan. If it's not worth $300 to $500 per month to you, potentially interest-free for 18 months, then we might not be the place for you. I'm giving you a rough idea of what it costs. Now, some patients will pay it all up front and they get a discount. And we'll go over exactly what your care is going to cost on your second visit. And just so you know, you're under no obligation. You could do whatever makes sense for you, but it does have to make sense for you, okay? Now, you should ask yourself, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious is your illness? What you have is a chronic illness. They don't get better on their own. They only get worse. Nobody has a magic wand here, okay? They're going to change. It's going to get worse over time. So where do you see yourself in 1 to 3 years from now? You should look at that. Where do you see yourself from 1 to 3 years if nothing changes? Due to time constraints, we can only accept those that are truly committed. You'll be amazed at how healthy you can get once you go to someone who truly understands the underlying causes and addresses those causes. So I hope this makes sense. If you're watching this and you're ready to really make a change in your life, please call our office, make an appointment. Let's get started. We hope to see you soon.
I was just frustrated with the whole conventional medicine. Nobody mentioned diet. Nobody mentioned anything. I asked if maybe my adrenals might be messed up. No, absolutely not. There's just no way that's a problem. I'm really excited. I'm excited for the changes that I've seen so far, and really excited for the changes that I know are just right around the corner. My name is Smithia. I have been coming here for about 4 months. Back in April, my OBGYN actually found that my thyroid was enlarged and sent me for some more blood work, and then they found out that I had Hashimoto's, and so she sent me to a primary care doctor who just put me on a medication, didn't ask any questions, just here's what you're going to take, and wanted me to go see an endocrinologist. So I went to see the endocrinologist. Told them that I was trying to do a gluten-free diet because I had done some research and knew that that was the best way to go to start with Hashimoto's, and he changed my medication and put me on a medication that actually had a gluten filler in it. So I was just frustrated with the whole conventional medicine. Nobody mentioned diet, nobody mentioned anything. I asked if maybe my adrenals might be messed up. No, absolutely not. There's just no way that's a problem. So I just started doing some more digging and asking friends. And I actually had a couple of friends that came to Magnolia Medical, and so I made an appointment, came in the first visit after all my blood work and labs and everything were run, and they found a lot of stuff going on. It wasn't just my thyroid. I had leaky gut, my adrenals in fact were an issue, and then the Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So then the next time I came in, I got my diet tweaked a little bit and just started on supplements and things to just heal my whole body instead of just concentrating on the thyroid numbers, which really weren't the root issue of what was going on. Walk in and everybody's so friendly and everybody knows you by name, and it's like the whole clinic's goal is, everybody here is just to see you not just look better on your lab work, but to feel better, like your whole life be improved. And just the fact that the whole body's being treated and not just one little, portion. You actually dig down and find out what's going on, the root cause of what's going on, and get that fixed, and then it all just kind of starts falling into place. Before I came here, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, weight gain that I just couldn't lose any weight. I had no energy whatsoever. And so once we kind of found out what was going on, and that all that was normal with what I had wrong, we started the Repair and Clear diet and supplement protocol. I've been on that about 4.5 weeks, almost 5 weeks now. I've definitely noticed a difference in my, I can sleep better at night. I am beginning to have more energy. The diet hasn't been as tough as a lot of people think it is. It's just eating real food. Cutting out the processed and you don't go to fast food restaurants so much anymore. It's more cooking whole foods like our bodies want. And I'm really excited. I'm excited for the changes that I've seen so far, and really excited for the changes that I know are just right around the corner.